Welcome to Truthbombs&Tea. Today we are looking at the 5 signs that you have, quote unquote, chronic anxiety. So the title of the blog is 5 Signs That You Have Anxiety, Not Just Stress. And the reason why that title is written in the blog and that I chose that title is because oftentimes we put anxiety down as just stress, but there is quite a substantial difference between anxiety and stress. So in this video, we're going to look at the 5 signs that you have anxiety as a condition, not just you're anxious at times. That's just normal. We all are. And not just that you are sometimes stressed. Again, that's normal. We all are. In this video, we're looking at 5 signs that anxiety is not just a fleeting thing, but it is a negative condition and negative consequence for you if you have these 5 signs. And it's important because occasional stress is perfectly normal and it is an evolutionary byproduct, an evolutionary system, because we needed to kind of be on a little bit of hypervigilance and on alert at certain times, like if a predator sprang out of the bushes. However, due to a lot of the demands and busyness of our life, our system kind of kicks into overdrive. And for some of us, that anxiety becomes very heavy and it becomes ever present, and it can start to diminish your physical, mental, emotional, and your spiritual health. And nobody wants that, especially here at Truth Bombs and Tea, because we are all about living life to the full and living the rest of our life as the best of our life. So let's dive in. So I'm going to start with a couple of stats, and I'll read these because, I like to be accurate with the research. So studies have shown, and this first one is in the US, and they did an extensive study in 2024, so last year, that 43% of all adults, well, in the study anyway, reported feeling more anxious than in the previous years. And if you think about that, it kind of makes sense because we went through the pandemic and a lot of mental health and emotional health and physical health was drastically impacted by COVID and the response to COVID itself. So people still haven't really gotten over that or haven't processed all of that out. I mean, if you think of it, some people couldn't even see their mother, their father, their grandmother, their husband, their wife, their kids when they were dying in hospital. And so the impacts are great. So anxiety has been at an all-time high since that period. So 17.2% of Australians, I love the way they say this, age 16 to 85. So basically 3/4 of the population had an anxiety disorder in the past 12 months. So 17.2%, that's almost 1 in 5 people. So it's not just something that you and I experience, it's something that on a global level is increasing. Okay. So how do you tell whether it's just, normal quote unquote stress or whether it is a more sinister problem? Okay. Something that's impacting you and you may know it, you may not. Okay, let's start with sign number 1. And the first thing that shows up, okay, is physical symptoms. So your body and your mind are very intertwined, and the mind affects the body's health, and the body's health can affect the mind's health. Okay, so it's kind of like the yin and yang, or like the two koi fish. One affects the other very much. So the symptoms can be things like extreme things that are quite short and sharp, like maybe a panic attack. It can be things like that, but that in of itself is not really anxiety. If it's an isolated event, that's purely an episode of panic. But what anxiety looks like when it lives in the body is kind of this consistent and persistent low to mid and sometimes high range anxiety. Okay, so it's things like you tend to have cold hands and feet. You tend to get, sweaty palms. You might get heart palpitations. You might feel dizzy spells. You may even get headaches. Okay. Now, this is not to say that all of those things are definitely indicators of anxiety, but they are fairly good yardsticks if you don't have like an actual physical diagnosed condition. Like maybe you've got uh, a hole in the heart or something. Okay. So the difficult thing about anxiety is that it often mimics the physical symptoms in your body, often mimic other medical conditions. Okay. So it's important to, get checked out, make sure that, for all intents and purposes, you're in pretty good shape, because it's by the process of elimination that then you can say, well, I don't have like atrial fibrillations, trying saying that quickly. I don't have like a hole in the heart. I don't have XYZ. I don't have, autoimmune issues or whatever it is. So, process of elimination can sort of tell you that, well, if that's the case and you don't have any sort of really evident diagnosable things, it's most likely your body telling you that it is having high levels of anxiety and cortisol. Okay. And of course, sweating under the arms, etc., etc. Okay. The chicken and egg of this is that if you do wake up in the middle of the night, or you suffer from insomnia, or you've got the night sweats or whatever, then you start to have anxiety about not sleeping properly. Okay, so it can snowball into a self feeding cycle. But that's number one. If you have symptoms that I just described and there's no real physical underlying cause, most likely you're starting to get creep into that chronic anxiety, not just the occasional stress. Number two is social anxiety. So this is quite another sort of sneaky thing. So it could be that you stop going to the gym. It's that you don't ring your friends to go out for dinner very often. It's that you prefer a night in, to anything else. It's the fact that you think about going out and you kind of start to worry about it. Okay. A lot of times we fool ourselves and say, oh, it's because I'm tired. Like it's been a real week at work and I've been super busy. And that's actually true if it's occasional. But if you or the people around you that love you and know you are like, hey, you okay? You haven't been out with us for ages. And you say, oh, I'm busy at work or whatever. It sneaks up. Okay. So you may not even realize that you're kind of shrinking yourself down because of social anxiety. Okay. Or you feel like, oh, if I bump into that person, or you start to get worried about the conversation. All right. And in severe cases, of course, people don't leave their house, whether that's diagnosed as agoraphobia or intense anxiety. But the social anxiety is symptom number two, that you start to uh, shrink your world down and you feel safer sort of just being in the house and doing things on your own and that sort of thing. Okay. That's a sign that you're becoming not just a bit tired, but you're getting anxiety that is becoming impactful on your life. Intrusive negative thoughts. Okay. So this is when, like we all have a bit of an intrusive thought to think, oh, if I don't get my presentation in on time, my boss is going to be mad. Okay. That's kind of like a rational, logical thing if you know your boss and you know you're going to run late on your presentation. I'm talking about not normal worrying like that. I'm talking about like catastrophizing loops that are very negative. All right. So usually when you have these thoughts, then you have kind of like the physical tension. Your shoulders might be up, or you might have a lot of neck and shoulder tension. That's another physical indicator that, as I said, the mind and body are very intertwined. That can impact your thoughts, and the very fact that you're catastrophizing and like projecting all these worst case negative scenarios then affects the body. Okay. So your brain is convinced that if you think through the problem enough times, bad things won't happen. All right. But research has shown that if you fairly logical in your risk management. So, say you're going over to a safari in Africa for a holiday, you'd check out like what the inoculations are. You would have a look at where the safer places were, that it's a reputable company. Intrusive negative thinking is something like, I shouldn't go on there because it's out of the country and it's not going to be safe. If I go there, I could be, charged and stampeded by a rhino and killed. I might be hijacked over there. My husband that's going with me may be killed and I may be held for hostage. So it's this kind of really negative loop that feeds back and makes it more negative, and you tend to catastrophize, and then the thoughts spiral and spiral. So that is what I'm talking about in terms of negative intrusive thoughts. Okay, so there's a study done by the World Health Organization, that shows that more than 150 million people live with a mental health condition, and anxiety is the primary one. Okay. So thoughts often occur, these negative, impactful thoughts, usually around things that are completely out of your control, or that in most likely probability will never happen. So that's the distinguishing factor that I really want to get across here. And that is, it's not just like a little bit of worry about something normal, like, yeah, I better get my vaccinations if I'm going to an area that has some sort of disease that I could catch. That's normal sort of forward planning and forward thinking. Okay. Or a worry might be, I've put my luggage on the plane. I've got to change 3 planes. Hopefully, my luggage will meet me at the last airport. That's kind of normal worry. But it's that worry that is completely irrational. Like, my luggage is going to be thrown out of the plane over Guatemala or something like that, right? So that's a silly example, but it is focusing on things that are completely out of your control and that you can't do anything about, and most likely will never happen. So that's number 3. Sign number 4, disturbed sleep. Okay, so again, this is a vicious cycle. When you don't get enough sleep, your mental capacity is vastly diminished. Okay, and because you don't get enough sleep, then you have anxiety about not getting sleep. Okay, so anxiety and sleep have a direct correlation. So make sure that you are prioritizing sleep and that you are doing a routine for sleep. Okay. So poor sleep doesn't just make you tired, it actually affects your brain's capacity to respond, to make decisions, and its reactive process to stress. All right. So physical symptoms of anxiety don't take a break just because you're tired. All right. So that's the other thing. If you are occasionally waking up because there's a rooster that your neighbor has or something, or you might be in menopause and you get a bit of a night sweat and you get up to go to the toilet and you come back and you can fall asleep. That's life, right? We all don't get a great good solid 8 hours every single night. However, if you more than not don't have good sleeps because your mind is racing before you go to sleep and you're fired and wired up, or that you constantly wake up from sleep, and straight away your brain goes into a loop about, oh my God, I'm going to get fired because I haven't had a sleep. That is chronic anxiety. Okay. And of course, you should seek some medical support and maybe even some therapy if you are finding that you have one or more of these symptoms that are impacting your life. Okay. And the final one, you start to avoid things. Okay. So the other one was social anxiety, where you really don't want to get into groups, crowds start to freak you out. You used to love the pub, now you don't want to go. That thing involves other people, like relating to people and talking to people and being in the presence of people. This is a piggyback one, number 5. It's that you avoid things. Okay. And this is another sneaky one because it's not like you avoid everything all at once. you start to reduce and shrink your world down. So, as I said, maybe you go to the gym normally and you're like, I can't be bothered. Okay. Maybe you went for coffee and a walk with the girlfriends, and now, more oftentimes than not, you don't go. So, anxiety disorders interfere with your daily activities. Okay. Maybe you used to love gardening and now you don't. Okay. And it can really impair your family and social relationships and the quality of your life. So, the Australian mental health data also confirms this. So, it shows that avoidance behaviors are among the most disabling aspects of anxiety disorders. Okay. And it has significant impairment on your work if you're studying and on your social functioning. And that's how you can tell that it's not just the occasional, I'm too tired because I've had a really busy week at work, totally fine. But if it's now impacting different areas of your life, whether it's your family relationships, your friendships, your work, okay, the leisure that you used to enjoy, then that is avoidance. And that's part of the anxiety. That's number 5. Okay, so the good news is that it's very treatable. And I'll be going through those tips with you in the next video. But in the meantime, if you're like, whoa, I've got all 5 of those things, be sure to get some support and talk to someone that you know loves you and that you trust and has your back and wants to see you the happiest, healthiest possible. Go to your doctor, have an all over physical, maybe get a mental health care plan if you need it. And then that way, that's subsidized or free to go to a therapist. Uh, Maybe use your private health insurance. The thing I really want to leave you with is that anxiety, while it feels terrible, is a sign that there's certain things that you are baseline fearful of or worried about. And those things need to be addressed in order for the anxiety to be diminished. But it's your brain and body's way of telling you that it's not happy and to pay attention to it. And the good news is you don't have to pay attention to it on your own. You can have that support that I just mentioned. So I hope this is helpful. If you are new here, please consider subscribing. And if you've been a long time watcher, you may not have subscribed yet. And that just tells YouTube that, uh, you're interested in this and this is of some value to you. And also, I'm trying to grow my baby channel, so the more people that can support the channel, the better. And hopefully, the quality of what I talk about and what I share and the tips that I give are making a positive impact for you. And if so, it's free to subscribe. It's free to hit the like button. Share it with someone that you know is going through a hard time with anxiety, and hit the bell notification so that each week when a video drops, it will pop up in your feed and you can get a notification too. That'll pop up and say, Truth Bombs and Tea has just dropped a new video. All right, so finishing up, the 5 signs are physical symptoms in the body, social anxiety, negative intrusive thoughts, sleep or the lack of it, and of course, avoiding basically a lot of things in your life. But you can get help, and there's a lot of it out there, and there is a beautiful bravery and courage to support your own self by saying, I would like some support and I'm going to get that support, and not just suffering in silence. So, next week, I'll be looking at some really key ways of unlocking the anxiety and diminishing it. So, I look forward to that one. And until next time, let's make the rest of our life the very best of our life. Bye for now.